In this video, we're going to look at group management for DX NetOps in DX NetOps Portal. Groups are used to provide context for dashboards. Whenever you're looking at data, you pick a group context that scopes the data in the views. Group management is under Administration, Group Setting, Groups. From here, you can see the group tree. The group tree is an important part of group context because any context includes all of the items in child groups as well. So looking at this tree, for example, the sites group includes all of the site groups for each of these cities. If I expand these, we can see there's no further child groups underneath. So if I look at something from the context of sites, or set up thresholding in that context, it will apply to every group that is a child of that parent group. For this walkthrough, I'm going to create a new group under All Groups. To create a group, select the group you want as the parent and click Add Group. You cannot move a group after creating it. I'm going to create the demo group here. There are two kinds of group types you can create. Custom groups, which are just a container, and site groups that provide additional information related to the location. Site groups include latitude, longitude, elevation, so you can give them some geocharacteristics, as well as free definition for a location, and most importantly for the functionality in the product, setting a time zone and business hour for the groups. For this demo, I'll create a custom group first, and then under my demo group, I'll add another group as a site group. In this case, I want to assign time zone and business hours. So I'll pick Eastern Standard Time. And we've already defined business hours in the system, so I'll take this standard business hours definition. When you've assigned business hours to the site group, if you load a dashboard in the context of that group, and the views support business hours, those views will default to showing the business hours defined for that site group. And then I'll save the group. You can also see this copy group option over here. This option does not actually create a full group copy, but creates a reference group. So for example, we have this New York group over here, and New York is part of the Northeast. So I want to include items from the New York group in this Northeast group. I'll select the group, click copy, pick where I want to place the group, and then paste group. The lock icon here on the New York group indicates it's a group reference. The reference group here, which points back to the New York group. So any members of the New York group will also appear under Demo Northeast. This is very useful if you have a group structure where you want users to see different parts of the tree under the same context, but don't want to maintain those groups separately, or if you want particular items to appear in multiple places in the tree. For example, you might have an all firewalls group that shows the firewalls across your entire enterprise, and then you might also want to have a firewall group specifically under each site. So a New York firewalls group would appear both under all firewalls and under New York. Next, we're going to look at managing group membership. Under this Demo Northeast, I'm going to create another group called Northeast Routers. This is going to be a custom group, and I want to put all of our Cisco routers in this group. Group membership can be managed dynamically with rules or manually. We recommend using group rules for membership because then as the system discovers new devices, those devices and their components are added to the appropriate groups. I'll create a new group rule. Group rules use basic logic to define what items are added to the group. The first piece of the rule is always the item type. In this case, I want to select devices. And the second is always the scope of group membership to assess for the rule. The default is all groups, but you can narrow that as needed. I'm going to leave this as all groups for the example and add another condition. I want this group to be Cisco routers, so I'm going to say the device description is like Cisco. Is like is a function that means it includes that string, and then I'll save the rule, and I'm going to preview the results. I'll scroll down and you can see that this would add 23 devices, and looking through here I see a mix of routers and switches. I really only wanted this group to include routers. These are all included because they have Cisco as part of the description. So I'm going to edit the rule and add another condition on context type. Again, I'll use is like so that the group also includes devices that have multiple context types. And I'll save the rule and preview the results. You always want to preview rule results before saving the group to make sure that you're getting the expected results. Now we have 16 items. All of them have the router context, which is what we wanted. So I'm going to save the group. The reason you don't want to save a group before previewing the results is that you may have created incorrect logic in the group rule. And if the group is being used for threshold management, that could start creating a flood of alerts in the system. Additionally, on the back end, the action of creating a group makes a lot of changes in the data, so you always want to check the logic before saving it. You can also edit group membership individually. You can see all of these devices are now part of the group, and let's say for some reason I want to remove this one specifically because it's outside the scope of monitoring that I want for Northeast routers, but it got pulled in by the group logic and I don't have an easy way to change the logic to get rid of it. So I can remove this device manually. Once removed, it's added to an excluded list, and the automatic group rules will not re-add it unless I remove it from that exclusion list. Another quality of groups that you'll see here is the include children of managed items. By default, this option is selected. And what this means is that this group also includes all of the children of these devices from a data model perspective. So interfaces and device components like memory, CPU, temperature sensors, real-time tests, all of that gets included in the group. When you're looking at device level information, you want to include those components, so we recommend keeping this selected. But there are some cases where if you were exclusively looking at devices, for example, if you wanted a group that just showed availability, you could exclude children of managed items, and that would keep the group relationships in the database simpler. So that's why we have that option here. Now, if I navigate back to my dashboard, I can open the group picker and see that under my example group, the demos Northeast group appears. And under that, we can see New York and Northeast routers like we created. When I select this group, it changes the scope of my dashboard, and I can see the interface information from the devices that we added to the group.